you need to completely re-architect everything to get to VCF 9. Absolutely false statement. In this video, we're going to cover getting a workload domain built, but using existing infrastructure. What that means is we're going to import your current fleet into VCF 9 and lifecycle it. We're going to look at things like shared NSX instances, how things operate with each other, and the workflow to get there. Before any of that, we're going to first look at some theory, just so you get a picture of what it is we're going to achieve and what you require at a minimum.
There's always a bit of theory to cover. My goal here is to give you a couple of slides just to give you an overarching picture of how it is or what you need to be able to successfully import an existing vCenter. So in my case, or in any case, this is sort of the architecture that you can import from. On the left-hand side, we've got an existing infrastructure, vCenter 8 and above, VDS with 8 and above. ESX hosts can be 8. Now we are transitioning to LCM images. If you've got VUM baselines, that conversion does need to happen at some point, especially when you go to lifecycle hosts to version 9, it does require the LCM images. NSX Manager doesn't need to be deployed. As part of the process, you can deploy it if it doesn't already exist. And then your storage options. Then you go through the import operations. As you can see there, I'm not going to go through each and every individual step. After you go through that entire process, you end up with a managed imported workload domain. Quick highlight of the versions. So you've got, when you're going to VCF 9X, you've got the vCenter, ESX, and NSX Manager versions at a minimum. A couple of callouts here that I'll keep to at a high level. You can have shared NSX managers across multiple vCenters, not in ELM mode. NSX Manager on the same network, again, no ELM. Federation, that's now supported as part of the import, but once again, ELM can't be involved with vCenters. It does then still let you upgrade or import those vCenters with NSX attached. If you've got NSX in your environment and for whatever reason you deployed a single node, the import process does require that you need 3 nodes. So it will block you there from upgrading and ask you to make sure that you meet that requirement. Then you can also sync and upgrade your edge clusters as part of the lifecycle. Couple of things that aren't supported. Multiple NSX managers to a single vCenter. That was supported at one point in time and was an option, but it's not supported for the upgrade, or sorry, the import. So you can see the couple of points in bold. So VDS 8.0 or later, which I've already called out. VDS with LACP. We don't mandate that you have to break that apart, which will cause a bunch of issues within your environment. You can upgrade as is or import as is. And if you've, for whatever reason, got a single PNIC, as long as it's 10 gig and above, you can bring that across on a standard switch and then you can do that conversion. If you've got multiple 10 gig NICs on a VDS, perfect. Or that's pretty standard anyways. The not supported column, I won't read through all of them, but important to highlight as well. From a high level process, we enter the details. We select the vCenter that you want to link to and also NSX if you've got one. It goes to the next point. You'll see all this in the demo as well. Confirm certs, you do your pre-checks, your validation, you set up NSX or you join an existing one, and then your import completes. The process to import actually doesn't take that long. Some key tips. I won't read through all of these, but in your own time, if you need to, go through this as well. Quick environment overview before we go through the process. I've got 2 vCenters that I'm going to be importing. The first one is what I'm going to call it the primary management, workload domain. Already has NSX deployed, integrated, VIBs deployed, TEPs configured, edge node deployed. It's running version 4.2.3. And then I've got a vCenter for this domain, which is running 8.0.3. Now, if we have a quick look in NSX, jump into system, go to fabric, hosts. You can see it's all configured here. I've got a profile attached and there's some TEP addresses there. We'll look at the edge node. I've only got one deployed just for this demo here, and then an edge cluster. Now, the second domain here is quite literally just a vCenter. And the reason for this is I want to show you what happens if you don't have NSX in an existing vCenter and you're trying to import it, but you've already got an existing domain that you've imported. In this case, the first one has NSX deployed, and I want to define that shared instance of NSX, which we used to be able to do when deploying a greenfield build. But in this case, we're going to look at the process when we're importing. I've now logged into ops. And just to reiterate the flow here, you're driving everything here through VCF Operations. What it does under the hood is then orchestrate some tasks in SDDC Manager to import the domain and all that sort of stuff. Previously, in prior versions, you would have just gone straight to SDDC Manager and run the scripts and done all that sort of stuff. But here, the magic comes from VCF Operations. So for me, I'll go to Inventory. I'm going to the region where I want this instance imported to, and I'll add a workload domain. Sorry, I'll import a vCenter, not add a workload domain. Adding a workload domain is a greenfield build. I'm going to call this workload 8.1. There we go, workload 8. I'm going to specify an external vCenter, and here we put the FQDN in, I'll put the root password in. I'll come back once all this is populated. I've now populated all the details, passwords, credentials. I won't go through all that. There is an option down here. Now, keep in mind, this is saying if you're importing a vCenter for NSX Manager in version 9 or higher, this doesn't work or won't work in my case. Because as I showed you, we're running version 4.2.3. Once you upgrade as part of the lifecycle management to NSX 9, we can then have that edge node sync and all that sort of stuff to ops and SDDC Manager. But as of now, checking this box will result in a validation failure. I will continue this just to show you what it actually does and the reason the import checker tool is useful. Picks up it tries to connect to the vCenter and workload domain NSX Manager. I'm going to acknowledge that and confirm the thumbprints, and I'll rerun the validation here, and we'll come back once it's done. See at the top there, it says validation failed. There's a huge number of successes here. I mean, I would expect so because it's quite a green environment. Let's keep going down and see what the error is. Okay, there it is. NSX does not meet the minimum version required for edge cluster import for workload NSX 4. Effectively what we just spoke about. If I keep going down. Now, if you have more failures and you want to troubleshoot this a bit more, if you SSH onto the SDDC Manager and have a look at the log files in this location, var log VMware VCF, domain manager brownfield, if I ls this, we should be able to see, go back one step. What's this? So the domain manager log, as I always say, is probably your first stop. We have a look. Basically, everything you see here is what you'll see in the output that we saw in the UI. Now, if we go one step further and have a look at the brownfield stuff, okay, these are previous runs. I'll quickly show you what the output is. So, going to output, there's one directory here. We'll have a look at. You can see the guardrails report. So effectively that is all the tests it does to show you what needs to be passed and what fails and all that sort of stuff. The results and progress report, everything is here if you do end up needing to troubleshoot that level. The domain manager log, as I said, I would start there first. And then you've also got the VCF brownfield log in your specific run, that is. Sorry, I was meant to less that. So as you can see here, there's a bunch of information about the test that's running and everything else that you kind of would need to troubleshoot and import. But in this case, all I'm going to do is go back and I'll disable that edge cluster sync and we'll rerun the validation and it should succeed and then let us continue. There we go, completely successful. If I hit next on that now, a couple of bits of information to review. The right vCenter, right NSX, and we've disabled edge cluster sync in this case. We'll hit finish. Now what you will notice now, once that starts going, you'll see it running in tasks. So if I click on this, you'll see a bunch of task information show up here, but you will also see it in SDDC Manager once it starts. There you go, tacking on. So what that means is, once this starts going, under workload domains, as opposed to just seeing the management domain and the current existing workload domain, the one that we're importing will show up as a new workload domain underneath the one here or wherever it shows up in the list. Now we'll monitor that as it goes. It might take a bit of time. I've noticed it take anywhere between 15 minutes to an hour or two, depending on the domain itself and also the environment. But we will do a progress check while it's going, just so you can see what I mean in terms of the tasks. Lucky us, it actually fell pretty quickly. Not a whole heap of information here. It says check the log files. As I said, that's where we go for the log files. Surely we'll see something on SDDC Manager as well. Import provider infrastructure failed, blah, blah, blah. Yep. Okay, let's check the log files. Let's see what it comes up with. Now we've got a new one. Could not complete import operation. I'm going to quickly have a look for the error and then we'll troubleshoot it together. It pointed me to the VCF services log. So if we jump back, but before we do that, if you have a look here, it's saying failed to post domain inventory. Blah, blah, blah. This host already exists apparently. Now, for transparency, I've already tried this process in the past, so it's possible that it exists somewhere in SDDC Manager. Before we go and have a look at that, let's have a look at the progress report. This one here. It also, I mean, there's a couple of instances or different log files that point you to a specific common services or the VCF common services log. So if I have a look at the progress log, gives you a bunch of progress report, but then it also says, have a look at the VCF common services log, which is where I found that error that I just saw. Now, if we go back to SDDC Manager, go to all hosts. Management host is in use. Workload host, all of those are in use, but you can see here, there are 2 hosts here that have no status and no activity. If I go to unassigned hosts, I can hit this and click decommission. Hopefully that all goes successfully. And then after that, we'll retry the task to see if it errors again. If it does, then we'll move on to the next issue, assuming this was actually the case to fail. That suggests it completed successfully. If we have a quick look behind, can't see them there anymore, and we can't see those hosts there anymore. Now I'm going to go back into tasks. As I said, everything is driven from ops. I could retry it from SDDC Manager, but I'm going to drive it from here so it can make the call to SDDC Manager. Let's hit restart on that. And we'll see how that goes. That import completed successfully. You can have a look at the timestamp and that date stamp there. The same workload domain or region is, or vCenter is there. Bunch of tasks, you can go through that if you choose to in SDDC Manager. If I have a look up here, we can see the successful task, the task completed successfully. After we decommission the host there, we've imported the domain and it's all good. Now, as for the warning that we had about the checkbox for NSX edges, if we go into workload domains, you can see it there as well. For one, there's no edge cluster information here. 2, if you go back into VCF Operations, above you'll see what I'll call a somewhat healthy environment where everything is the right version, everything is syncing. You can see all the edge transport nodes and you'll be able to dig deeper and get metrics and all that sort of stuff out of it. But from the one that we just imported, you can have a look here, but there's very limited visibility of the environment. So what that tells me is, well, for one, you can't expand that out to get the edge cluster or the edge node. We need to lifecycle this to get more visibility, and we'll do that in this video. But before I do that, I want to show you the second step of importing a second VC, that second VC that had no NSX attached to it, and what the process looks like. Go into import. I'll populate all these details and we'll get to the part that makes sense because it's essentially the same steps. I've populated the vCenter details. This is where I've also gone wrong myself. Technically, the vCenter is currently not connected to an NSX instance. So I'm going to hit no or uncheck that and we'll hit next. It should validate, and there we go, the thumbprint again, like last time. Go next. It's going to run its prevals or validations and we'll let that complete. Could not. Okay, so that typically would probably mean, I'm going to guess it was a password error. Let me pull up SDDC Manager and we'll have a look. This is the domain manager log. Typically, I always say go here first. Before it rolls over, you can quickly see here, failed to retrieve trusted host cert, unauthorized. So I assumed it was an authentication issue, and which it seems to be. Now let's go back and see if that has resolved. It's still running its validation. I'll let it complete, and once it's done, we'll come back to this. Validation successful. We'll hit next. Now this is the screen I want to show you. There was no NSX attached to the vCenter. We have two options, clear cut at the top, create a new NSX Manager instance and join an existing one. In this case, we're going to join, but before we do that, I'm going to show you the new options. If you're creating a new one, you've got the single option or the cluster. It is recommended always for a production environment to do cluster, but it is fully supported to run a single NSX Manager. And then after that, you just apply all the FQDNs, depending on if you choose cluster or single appliance. And at the bottom, similar to what we saw in my previous video for converting, is configure NSX overlay using ESX management VM kernel networking. And that uses the management interface to use for NSX logical networking or overlay networking. In this case, going back to join, and I'm going to select, it's the workload domain one that we just spun up or added in. And I'm going to put the password in for all these accounts. And notice if I go into NSX, I'll quickly show you, I have not added the compute manager. System, fabric, compute manager. There's only one. Now we'll go back here, we'll hit next. Notice that also the two vCenters or none of the vCenters so far that we've worked on have been in ELM. ELM is not supported in 9. You have to break that if you're choosing to import. This import function will also work with new federated environments or NSX federated environments, but once again, ELM needs to be broken. There we go. Once again, the validation's all successful. There was a warning. Yeah, okay. It's just a warning anyways. Validate, next, finish. This should kick off the process. Last time it took about 10 minutes. We'll give it about the same amount of time. We'll come back and see what it's done for us. There we go, that import has now completed. There's two domains there. Should have named them a bit better, but you get the point. We're going to NSX now. Those hosts, so those two clusters are now set up. If we're going to compute managers, there are now there two. If we go into workload domains, I'll close all that. Go to workload domains. We've got a management workload domain, my original workload domain, and then the two that we were working on today. There you have it. How to share NSX across two workload domains. If you want, deploy your own, but that's how you do it. First things first, we go back into ops. We'll go to Fleet Management Lifecycle. This is the domain with the edge clusters. I'm going to plan my patching. Oh, hang on, before we do that, let's go and do the depot settings. All right, depot connection has issues. I'm going to put a token in here and I'll come back. Did that in the background. You can now see depot connection is active. Now we'll go back to, let's go to binary management. Make sure we've got everything that we need downloaded. I want to go to version 9.0.1. So I'll do this. And all of that has been downloaded and they're upgrade binaries. Let's go back into workload 2. So this is done at a SDDC manager level. Now we'll go to the domain that one of the domains that SDDC manager manages, and I'll plan the upgrade. Select the version that we want to go to. I'm going here. We'll hit next. I'll hit confirm on that. There's a target version selected. Hit done. Now there are already two updates off the bat. One is creating the new VM management port group, as you may or may not be aware. In later versions, I think it's VCF 5.1 and onwards, we deviated from a single port group for both ESX management and all the VM management to separating it for ESX and VM management. This doesn't force you to use the VM management port group, but it does create it for you. And then it also configures BOM components for, so I'll hit apply all on that. This shouldn't take too long. You can hit view details and we'll have a look at that. So you can see it's creating the two updates or applying the two updates now. We'll give that a couple of minutes and then we'll kick off the next part. Great, two updates are done. We'll go back to the rest of the updates, which it won't let me do. Let me go another way. Excellent. Shared an NSX instance, changing the target code. There you go. Effectively, this is saying we've got that one NSX that's shared across two domains. Upgrading it could cause problems. That's fine. We know about the compatibility stuff. So for now, we're going to proceed as you would. Here's the first update it's going to do. Let's configure update. It's an NSX upgrade, it's a two-step process. You can read the warnings. I'm going to hit next. Yeah, let's do NSX edge clusters. We'll hit go on that. Next. I'm not going to check that because I don't have more than one edge cluster, and run precheck. So this is going to run the precheck and let you update after the successful completion of updates. Sorry, prechecks. If you are successful. Usually takes a bit of time. Let's see if we have the prechecks going. So if you hit that, nope. So that's the old one. Oh, there we go. There's the prechecks. We can click that for more details. It's not a whole lot more detail. So it's 66% complete. Once that either passes or fails, and if it doesn't prompt us to continue, I'll either let it go or I'll start the video again, and then we'll kick off the update together. Now, I did forget to restart the recording again, but effectively it finished the cluster check, said it was all good. There was a couple of warnings, and then there's a schedule update button. I clicked on that, and effectively what you would see, let me cancel this. Hopefully it doesn't take me through the whole process again. It should come back saying you can schedule the update. It says canceling. All right. Precheck went through 5 warnings. I'm not worried about that. There's one error, and it's telling me NSX backup. Basically, I don't have a backup. I've gone into NSX, I've configured it, and I'm starting that backup process. Once that's done, we go back in and we retry just the failed check, so we don't have to do the whole thing again. And hopefully we're then good to start the upgrade. Backup is done. We'll retry just this one. Hopefully it's not going to take too long. It should just be a backup check. Come back into NSX Manager, and it looks like when it's doing the check, it might have kicked its own backup off. So it's probably just a safeguard. So I'll have to let for this complete again, and then we should be good to continue after that. All right, success. No errors. We're good to go. What we do is go backwards and schedule that update. All good to go. Upgrade now. Otherwise, you can schedule a different time if you wanted to specifically do a maintenance window or something like that. I've done all this. Finish. And away it goes. It's going to start doing the upgrade, and we'll keep a track of it. And if there's any issues, we'll come back. The NSX upgrade has gone through successfully. Now, if we jump back, get out of status. There you go. Step 1 of 3 done. View details. We're up to vCenter. Now, what we need to do is, let's hit configure update. We'll hit next. I have backed up. I haven't, but I'm just going to wing it. Network configuration automatic. It's going to spin up a secondary appliance and do the standard, copy all the data over, migrate things, and so on. I'm going to go immediately in automatic. So scheduling switchover options. It's going to cut over as soon as it thinks it needs to, and we're going to do the update straight away. And hit finish. We'll let this process go, which should hopefully not take too long. I think it's about somewhere around a 40-45 minute process. Looks like that process went through. If I click on view details, that load. NSX is done, vCenter is done. Now we're up to ESX. Now, ordinarily, I would suggest just going through the configure update process and patching as is. I believe this is going to cause me an issue, but let's have a look. Let's go through, hit next. I want to pick the cluster that I want to upgrade. Okay, there are no images available. And the reason for this is you need to import a cluster image into NSX Manager. And to do that, you do it through vCenter. So we're going to cover that process now. And before we can't proceed with the upgrade of the ESX hosts until we do that. So effectively, if I go here and assign image, there's nothing that's going to be there. We need to go to the image catalog. I'll go backwards 1 sec. To create an image, you first have to log into vCenter. And then while you're in vCenter, you click on Lifecycle Manager, which is in the drop down here. And effectively, we're going to be creating an image in vCenter that we can then import into NSX Manager. We'll call this ESXi 902. Then, okay, the reason I can't actually see anything here is because I've not updated the software depot. Now, in order to do that, we need to go into settings. The first step for the ESX upgrade is to create the image in vCenter. In order to do so, you need to go into Lifecycle Manager and do a few things here. But before you do that, just make sure either it's going through a proxy or whatnot. In my case, it is. You also need to change the download sources because these are generic. They are customer specific in terms of what I mean by that is you need to add your download token in. So I'm going to go and add in 4 new ones and pause the video here using the token. And then this should go from validating status to connected, essentially. Scratch that. I had some proxy issues. So what I ended up doing was downloading ESXi offline bundle, which is the zip file here. Went into Lifecycle Manager. Once this is complete, I'll show you where I went. But essentially, I came into Lifecycle Manager, went to binaries, and then I imported the binary from there. So now, effectively, I went to Actions, Import Updates, find the the zip file, browse, import, and you'll see the screen that I just saw. Now, I should be able to go into here, create image. We'll call this ESX902, resume editing that from earlier. The version should be there. Yep, there we go. Perfect. No vendor add-ons, blah, blah, blah. Let's quickly validate. Okay, so you can see the task there. Validate is good. Hit save. Next, now that that image is created, we have to go into ops. Now I'll find ops. Let me cancel that. There we go. Image management, import image. I want it from this vCenter. And there it is, import. That should show up here in a second. We'll give it a couple of minutes and it should show up. If we go into tasks, you'll be able to see it happening. Here we go. Bingo, image import is complete. Let's go back to Lifecycle. I'm going to find that instance that I was upgrading. It's under region 1. There we go. I'm just going to collapse that. Cool. Let's configure update. Cluster precheck. Okay, all that stuff is pretty standard. There's the cluster with images enabled. There's the cluster. I'm going to assign an image. There's the one we just created. Hit assign image. Hit next. Quick boot's fine. Migrate power.vm's fine. If it was a live patch, I would have checked that. And then if there was multiple clusters, I would have checked that as well. But I don't have either. So I'm going to hit next. Good to go. Quick boot enabled. Just a quick review of the options that we've selected and hit run pre-check and upgrade. So effectively, that's the process to get to 902 for the hosts. We'll come back or we'll troubleshoot if there's any problems in between. But as you've seen so far, we've gone through to this stage. And after this, we should be done. The environment should be upgraded, and then we'll chat about the linked domains. What I mean by that is, as you can see here, this domain shares an NSX instance for another workload domain. What that effectively means, we'll have a look at NSX because vCenter will still be on version 8. We need to upgrade that that domain from a vCenter and hypervisor perspective to be in line with the rest of this NSX instance. Pre-check complete. Now you can see here it says cluster image hardware compatibility and compliance check finished. There are 4 warnings. We had to have a look at the details, expand that out. Oops. Expand that out. Health check. What are the 2 warnings there? Software compatibility. Okay, sure. Image scan, 0 warnings, 1 warning. Over here. Current base OS. Cool. All right, so there's no real blockers. And what I mean by that is, if there was an issue with the upgrade, effectively it wouldn't say warning, it would say error, and it'll be a hard stop. Fix it before you go ahead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on schedule update, a quick summary again, hit next. I'm going to do the upgrade now. I've reviewed and hit finish. That should go and punch out that upgrade for us. And once it's done, this domain should be a 902 or compatible and equivalent of a workload domain of 902 after having imported it from a legacy vSphere 8, vCenter 8, and so on. There we go. Upgrade complete. If we exit status here, step 3 of 3 done, view details, all good to go. Everything here should be version 9, perfect, except for NSX. Let's have a quick look. I imagine it's because of this. I'll do some digging and find out, but if we have a look at NSX now, if I just quickly log in, system, fabric, hosts. This is the one that we just upgraded. You can see it's version 902. This one here would still be running the older version. OS type is still 803. We're going to upgrades, which is also under here. Upgrade. So I think once we do the next domain and then finalize the upgrade, it'll report everything back into SDDC Manager as being good to go. But for now, the domain that we were concerned about is upgraded. Now, hopefully what we see is if we go into inventory, we've got a region 1, view NSX inventory. This is where we were earlier. You can see the edge node now. Yeah, okay. We're going to get some more detail out of this now. So effectively the end goal is there. We've got everything in version 9, and that's how you sort of lifecycle. You import and then lifecycle to the updated version of version 9.